Ariel Helwani, the MMA reporter who joins us now. Ariel, thanks for joining us. So set us straight. Is Conor McGregor retiring?
Well, again, Dan, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So as of right now, and you've been around this game, longer than me, definitely, and you know how it goes in combat sports and sports in general. These things happen, and in combat sports, promoters and fighters, they have their issues at times. You know all about that. But as of right now, this is not a hoax. It's not a troll job. It's not a joke. I mean, he is, in fact, saying, I'm not a part of this anymore. I'm walking away. Everyone that I've talked to, sources close to this entire situation, do believe at some point, when, where, why, how, against who, they don't know, but they do believe at some point he will fight again. He's a 27-year-old kid who is in the prime of his life, who makes a lot of money, who loves making money. They believe he'll come back at some point and fight, but right now, this isn't some, elaborate joke. I
could see if he won his last fight and then he had a disagreement with Dana White and said, look, I don't want to be part of promoting the rematch. I'll let you guys do it. I'm training in Iceland or wherever he's training.
Yep.
But he lost. And I think that's where Dana White said, no, dude, I need you here. You got to, that's part of, I think this happened one other time with a fighter with Dana White, right? Where he just said, all right, I'll take you right off the card.
Yep, that was prior to UFC 137. The situation there was that Nick Diaz was coming, Nate's brother, by the way, was coming over from Strikeforce. They had just purchased this organization called Strikeforce. He was their welterweight champion, and they finally put together this dream matchup between Nick Diaz and George St. Pierre, who at the time was the UFC welterweight champion. They put on this press conference in Vegas a couple of months before the fight to announce tickets and all that stuff, and Diaz no-shows. And in the middle of the press conference, it was very much surreal. Dana is fielding calls from Diaz's coach and manager asking, like, where is he? He's just not there. So there's a famous photo of just, Dana at the dais, GSP sitting down, and then an empty seat for Nick Diaz. So they ended up pulling Nick from the card altogether. Eventually, they did fight a couple of years later, and in a weird way, it made Nick into an even bigger star, this sort of anti-hero. So there is a somewhat precedent for this, but a lot of people at the time said, look, it's just a press conference. Who cares? He's going to show up to the fight. Why are you doing this? And a lot of them are saying this right now as well, but it's a little more, in my opinion, than just the press conference. There was a lot going on this weekend in Las Vegas for this fight, a lot of media, a lot of video shoots. They're investing a lot of money, but I do think that there's more. This has been brewing, and there's more going on than just this particular week.
How much power does Conor McGregor have in the sport?
I think he has a tremendous amount of power. I mean, if you want to, pick your poison. Look at his social media. That one tweet alone has over 150,000 retweets, which I'm told is more than any other athlete in the last 2 years. I mean, the amount of interest that this story has generated, people reaching out to me from all over the world, from Belfast to, Asia. It's just Singapore to do interviews about this story. I live in this MMA bubble, as we sort of talked about last time, and sometimes I don't realize when things sort of creep out of the bubble. This has bursted that bubble, and it's fascinating to watch. I don't think that the UFC ship is going to sink as a result of Conor, taking this break, not showing up at UFC 200, but it definitely hurts him. He's the biggest draw in the sport by far. Ronda Rousey may be the face of the UFC, meaning she'll show up on The View, Kelly and Michael, et cetera, but he is the biggest draw. He's their biggest moneymaker, and in fact, in my opinion, he's the biggest moneymaker in the history of the sport. So they do feel that pain with him not being there. I don't know if he can go rogue and do his own organization. It's tough to do that because the UFC has all these guys under contract, but he is without a doubt, in my opinion, right now the most powerful fighter in the UFC.
Ariel, thank you for taking time out, and we'll keep an eye on this. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
All right. Ariel Helwani, MMA reporter.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.